Hey, welcome to Sales Performance Mindset for this week, where we're talking about the three critical issues that too many salespeople put on, not just salespeople, but everybody in general. And that's the fear of rejection. That's that hesitation in making the call and just plain procrastination. So, hey, we got a great panel today. Let's kick into it. Gerhard?
We had an amazing session. Matt, Conway, and I, we were on the phone with about 20 sales managers that went through the Peak Performance Mindset training. And Matt, I want you to pick out one highlight from that call that relates to procrastination, fear of disapproval, and fear of cold calling.
One of the outcomes of this, working with this particular leadership team up here in Canada, actually, was that working on their mindset and being much more intentional, deliberate about what they focus on, and really viewing it through the lens of their personal, professional why.
Jamie, are you a procrastinator?
You know, I'm really not, but there are times where I look at my to-do list. By nature, I like to just get stuff done and check it off. But there are moments where I'll look at my list and there are some just things that I don't want to do. And what I've tried to do in those cases is do those things first and just do the hardest thing that I do not want to do first. Because what I have found is if I don't do that, then I'm spending the rest of the day as I'm doing these other things thinking about that big thing. And so it gets in the way of my productivity. That seems to work very well for me.
Mark, are you a procrastinator, or what do you do when you catch yourself procrastinating?
Well, you know what? Unfortunately, I do procrastinate, and I have to be held accountable. In fact, there was a very specific reason why we just did a show just about an hour ago, and I put in the end of that note, I got to go make some sales calls. Because if I don't allow myself to be held accountable, I'll procrastinate. And that is the single biggest way I have found to deal with procrastination, because I'll put off the hard stuff. Jamie, I'm just like you. You don't want to have to make that phone call. Let me just wait. It's by nature, we do that.
Yeah, that's exactly what Brian Tracy calls it. You eat the frog in the morning. So you do the most difficult and most challenging thing first, and then you're ahead of the game for the entire day. And I'm no exception. I procrastinate the things that I don't like to do, like Jamie. But then I become aware. My inner CEO wakes up and say, Gerhard, this needs to be done. Why are you not doing it? And obviously then I tell myself, you need to become comfortable with what feels uncomfortable and jump over that hurdle and do it. And then I feel better because I've conquered, as the Austrians say, I've conquered my inner pig.
Yes.
You know, it's kind of interesting, but I think today's technology allows us to procrastinate more than ever before. Go back years ago, before caller ID, phone rang, you answered it. Now it's like, oh no, that could be some. I'll just let it roll over to voicemail. I mean, same way with email, same way. I mean, we technology today allows us to procrastinate.
Right.
You know, I think for sales leaders and salespeople who are watching this this webinar right now, always make sure that when you start thinking of the totality of an exercise, start breaking it down into its constituents or component parts. And that really makes it much, much easier to eat the elephant. Because you know what eating the elephant does? It gives you indigestion.
I always say, like you said, Matt, chunking time is really good and valuable. But even beyond that, setting a specific goal for that chunk of time. So I would teach, my teams not to just say I'm going to cold call for 2 hours, but in 2 hours, I'm going to set 5 appointments. And so if they set 5 appointments sooner, they've accomplished their task or they can overachieve. But it's not just, I'm going to endure this, but what's the goal of this time? And then, as you mentioned as well, what's the why behind it?
So, Jeffrey, you are a can-do person. You have a positive outlook. How did you develop an anti-procrastination mindset for yourself?
I guess it's a little bit of self-talk in the morning. I'm always thankful that I could wake up on this side of the dirt. And so it always starts with a positive outlook in that regard. And then from there, it's a matter of setting up a little bit of what my milestones or objectives are going to be for the day. And I guess I started that way back in my field sales career when I was behind the wheel or doing a windshield time with my supervisors to set up what the goals were going to be for the week, kind of in writing them down in some cases. And that helped guide my day. And that became part of my my process, if you would, of preparing for the calls, to set those goals the night before and then work on them during the day.
You develop positive habits and in a routine that you followed religiously.
Yes, that's right.
We got to turn this on you, Gerhard, because you are incredibly productive. I never see you procrastinating anything. I get texts from you at 11 o'clock, midnight, 6 a.m. What is it you do?
Well, I wish I could tell you. It's so automatic now that I want to achieve everything that I plan to do. But there are things that are challenging for me, where I sometimes, forget about my list of priorities, where I get so immersed. Like, last week we had that long peak performance mindset video we live streamed on Facebook, and then I realized I'm spending way too much time in editing. And you and I discussed that, and then you gave me a different idea that now I discussed it with my editor, and I said, here's what I want to do. Here's the vision. And I solved the problem. So sometimes I make the mistake in doing too much trivia, if you will, where I should spend my time on higher priority items.
The goal keeps you from procrastinating. So the strength, the more we believe in the goal, but the flip side is the enthusiasm of the goal can immerse us in the details versus really delegating out.
Right.
So really it's having the goal we believe in, but not getting so enthusiastic about it. And I almost hate to say that term because I'm an enthusiastic person, that we get too immersed in getting things done.
Let's shift the conversation to the second topic, which is the fear of disapproval in selling, which I think stands in the way when it comes to calling on C-level executives. And Matt, you're sort of the leader in that field because you have the guts to get to the C-level, and you have a process for it. Will you share it with us?
Gerhard, in peak performance mindset, you talk about the imprinted and implanted mindset that we help to form who we are and how we show up in life. From our early years, from our parents, from school, coaches. A lot of the negative self-talk is from salespeople who basically have the point of view going, who am I to talk to the CEO? I kind of know my place and I'm comfortable, selling to the manager or director, or maybe a VP if I'm feeling really bullish on a day. And that really is their self-talk. And, for me, there's a couple of different levels of this. Firstly, from a leadership perspective, too many sales organizations don't make it explicitly clear what business they're in and why the salesperson should care about what they're doing. And because you're not tapping into the motivation at a high level from a corporate perspective, saying, our company helps our clients to achieve these outcomes, these results, these objectives, solve these problems, which, makes them happier, more profitable, et cetera, then they don't tie it down to the personal why. Because sure, you may have a sales role, but if you're tapping into intrinsic motivations about, I really want to make a difference in the world. Maybe I'm not saving babies on a daily basis, but I know in my heart of hearts that, if you buy my ERP system or you buy my e-marketing solution or my HR services or my widget, I'm going to improve your condition. And I'll have felt that I've done my, bit for, elevating, the planet or humankind or whatever it is.
We have to be focused on the why. And that, I think, then begins to change. Now I'm much more willing to talk to the CEO. I'm much more willing to make that cold call. I'm much more willing to dig in. But I got to be focused on the why. But as you said, companies spend all their time, sell the widget, sell the software, sell this, sell this. No. Why? Why? What's the outcome? Outcome focused.
I think it's interesting too, just to go along with that, the subtleties of that, of the mindset, and how salespeople often start a visit, a client meeting or an appointment saying, thank you so much for meeting with me, because they're focused, like, yes, right? They're focused on themselves, like, thank you, I got another appointment, I can check that off, versus I'm so glad we have the opportunity to be together today or talk together today about blank, whatever it is that they're selling. But if they have that subtle shift in their mindset, they're glad they're on the same playing field. They're both partners, and they're glad that they are together because they believe they can impact and help someone.
Jeffrey, tell me about your sort of realization that in order for you to succeed as a sales trainer and as a coach, how did you shape your belief system to the level where you can talk with anybody and everybody will give you a hearing?
Meet customer needs. I tended to focus on their needs, and being that I had a business background before I actually went into the sales arena or the sales management arena, I had a good sense of what our company was trying to achieve on their business. And then with sales training to develop the perspective of, okay, let me learn something about my customer's business so that when I went in to talk to them, I could be on the same rhyme and tenor as they were. So if I was talking to a CEO or I was talking to an engineer in the field, I could still kind of relate to where they were and what they were trying to achieve. Now, once I was there, my self-talk says, well, they don't know anything about blackberries. And there's a story there. When, as a kid, my first business venture was selling blackberries door to door to the mothers who made blackberry pies. And as I developed as a mature adult, it came to appreciate that just because you're meeting someone for the first time does not assume that they know everything and you know nothing. Right? So I could start that conversation with them with that perspective in my mind. Yes, I've studied their business. Yes, I know my business. So I do know something, and they don't know anything about blackberries. And amazingly, you would find a point that you could relate to one another and then develop the rest of the conversation after that. So if I'm talking to a CEO, I was always talking about a return on investment or something of that. If I was talking to an engineer, it was all about capability, capacity, and things of that nature. And so it made those transitions easier for me.
How did you deal with rejection when people didn't believe in your value proposition?
Well, the first thing was to appreciate that they weren't rejecting Jeff Jackson, because I'd already positioned myself as somebody who could add value. So just because they said no, in my self-talk was, okay, is that no, not now? No, not this week? No, not this year? No, not ever? And depending upon the kind of feedback I was getting, I could then challenge them to say, oh, so no, not now, but you don't have the budget. No, not now, or you don't have your technology device. We need to do some more R&D or something. Or is it no, not ever? I don't ever want to see you again.
Right. So you subcategorize everything and then troubleshoot the causes and then deal with them one by one.
Yeah. What was the source of their rejection?
Right.
You know.
Right.
I tried to determine what was the source of their rejection. An example: one client, cold call, never saw him before, but just talked to him on the phone to get the appointment. Drove overnight from Chicago in an ice storm to St. Louis. I get there, I'm a wreck. Yeah. My nerves are shot. I've got white knuckles, holding onto the steering wheel all the way. But I walk into the customer's office that morning, and he says, "Didn't you come in from Chicago last night?" I said, "Yes." "Wasn't there an ice storm?" I said, "Yes." He says, "Sit down. You got the business." Anybody that would be that dedicated to drive from Chicago to St. Louis in an ice storm to see me, I know will take care of my needs going forward.
You know, I always say no is never permanent. It's only a moment in time. And too many salespeople believe that a no is, oh, I'm done, I'm out of here. No, that's not at all. There's always another battle to be fought, period.
Right. Let's shift to the topic number 3, which is fear of cold calling. Mark, a lot of salespeople now say, don't cold call, social call.
Yeah, and let's do social media and let's just get a lot of exposure. Well, I'll tell you something. A lot of parts of the country in the winter, exposure will kill you. Okay, so that just goes without saying. You can cold call if you believe that what you can do is help the other person, and this all comes back to, it's not what you're selling, it's not even how you're selling, it's why you're selling, because you're going to positively impact the other person. So,
Matt, you have mastered cold calling. What is your strategy and what is your mindset?
I think the sales industry is awash with Me Too template-based approaches that are product and me based. We help you do this. We can help you get those. We. Don't we on your potential customers. They don't like it. Certainly, the sales teams that I've led in the past, we put product training right at the end of onboarding. The first couple of weeks were all about, here are the trends in the marketplaces. Here's what's happening to the players in that marketplaces. As a result of that, this is what companies are experiencing. And at an individual role level, this is what a day in the life of the CEO, COO, CFO, VP of marketing, VP of sales looks like. Now, when you onboard salespeople with what's happening in the marketplace, their language and their mindset changes.
If I've done a little homework on the company, and now I know that, okay, they're trying to get 30% of uplift in revenues based on new products they're going to introduce in the next 5 years. And I've done a little work about maybe some of their patent estate or something, some background that says, this is one of the directions they may go. Now, when I make that call, it's not a cold call in that truest sense. It's cold that they've never seen this beautiful face of Jeff Jackson, but it is not in the sense of what I may be able to help them do. Now we're talking about, how do I help you get to where you're trying to go? Based on the research that I've seen, you're trying to go in this direction. We have products that can work to help you get in that direction. Now, how do we, if you would, walk through that window of opportunity? And so I said, this is what you know. And sometimes I literally put up 2 fingers. This is what you know. This is what I know. And there's the window of opportunity for us to work with. Who do I talk to next? Where do we go to next? And amazingly, that's when I got introduced to the VP of R&D, or I got introduced to the business director or what have you. And we could have that next conversation. Absolutely. That led us along the path of, okay, how do we help you? How do I help you? And I would always say, I want to get paid for this. So
the positive self-affirmations that we use sometimes just to help us in our life in general can be used in cold calling right before we're calling. I can add value for their business. I want to make an impact. I know that what I have is meaningful. Just talking to ourselves and realizing the bigger picture.
So, Mark, we need to wrap it up, and let's wrap up with one takeaway that you want our audience to transform into reality this afternoon.
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give you 2. One is, the biggest people who scream cold calling doesn't work are the ones who are too afraid to cold call. B, so you just ignore those voices. B, focus on the impact that you're going to make on others. And then, you know what? You have an obligation to get in touch with them. The faster you get in touch with them, the faster you're going to be able to help them. And oh, by the way, when you do make that cold call, just like Jamie said, it's just to get the appointment. You're not trying to create the contract right then and there. It's just to move it forward.
For me, it's got to be getting really clear on both your personal and your professional why. So clarity on your personal why, and I would almost throw this out as a challenge to salespeople out there. If you're not clear of what your company why is, what's the difference that you make in the lives of your clients, you need to have a chat with your leadership and say, please tell me more.
Jeffrey, you also mentor a lot of kids, and you're a positive influence in your community. What's the takeaway from today's session? What do you want people to know that they need to do in order to be more successful?
As I counsel others, I challenge them to kind of study more, right? Study a little bit more. What do you know? And I listen to what they say, and then I say, well, have you thought about this? Challenging them to know more, because the more they tend to know, the less of this fear of the unknown comes into play, right? And so I think that's going to be one of the things I'll continue to emphasize for them, that your procrastination is all about the fear of the unknown, and you need not fear.
I think when we live with intention, living with purpose, we're doing all of these things. We're starting our day with positive self-affirmations. We're editing our negative self-talk. We understand our why, and we avoid a lot of these natural fears, or when we have them, our inner CEO steps in and helps us think at a higher level. So what I would say to all of us is, let's live with intention in that way so that we can achieve our purpose and impact other people's lives and businesses accordingly.
Our mindset impacts other people, like our kids or like our customers. We cannot go around in neutral. We're always biased either towards a positive or a negative mindset. And when we meet with someone, we can either be infected by the negative mindset and have a wreck of a conversation, or we have that positive conversation, that window of opportunity where we build something constructively, and we are all, in the final analysis, co-creators of a better world. We all want that. And everything else is gorilla dust. Why are we doing all this? Why do we reach out every Wednesday at 2:30 Eastern Time, Mark and I, and invite other people into this conversation? Because we want to create a better mindset in everybody's mind and also in their companies.
And what we have to do is we have to realize that we're really, right now it's August, we're watering our lawns. We have to be the garden hose to our lawns rather than be the sponge that gets rain dumped on us. That may be a bad analogy, but the whole idea is that we have to be externally focused, living with commitment and passion to be able to impact others. And that's where I think peak performance mindset is at its best.